So in today's video, I'm going to be going over 2 ways you can set up your Sony A7S III to create some time-lapse videos. Let's get started. What's good, fellow creators? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Mark. Thanks for hanging out with me on another video. Now, there are 2 ways that you can shoot a time-lapse using the Sony A7S III. You can also use any type of Sony cameras that has a built-in time-lapse intervalometer or with the S&Q mode. So in today's video, I'm going to be using the Sony A7S III menu. So it might look a little different, but all you have to do is look for the interval shooting menu on your camera. So the first thing that I want to go over are the gears that you're going to need besides your camera to shoot a time-lapse video. The first one you're going to need is a stable tripod. The reason for that is because you're going to be shooting this for a while and you need something steady for the camera. So the second gear that you're going to need is a VND or variable ND filter or an ND filter. Now, these are not necessary. Now, it really depends on what kind of time lapse you want to do. If you're planning on doing this during the day when the sun is out and it's really bright outside, you're going to need an ND filter. The reason for that is because of the shutter speed that you're going to have to use. Now, I'll go over that later on down into this video. So let's go over the first method that you can do with your Sony A7S III to create a time-lapse video. Now, personally, I don't like using this method just because the process does take a little longer, but I will show it to you on how you can use the Sony A7S III just in case you want to go this route. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is change the mode dial to manual. Now go to menu, shooting menu, and go over to drive mode, and then go to interval shoot function. Now turn on your interval shooting. Now for the shooting start time, this is basically how many seconds it will start after pressing the shutter button. So it really depends on what kind of how many seconds you want to give it some time after you press the shutter button, placing it on your tripod so it doesn't give you that shaking movement. Now go to shooting interval. You can select how many seconds between each interval. I usually leave mine at 1 second. Now for the number of shots, you could change this to 9,999 if you don't know how long you want your time-lapse to be, but you can change this to however many shots you want. For tracking sensitivity, I leave that in mid. Now, after you set this up, you can change the shutter speed, the aperture, and the ISO to whatever exposure you need for that time-lapse. So like I said, I don't prefer this method because basically it's a sequence of photos that you have to put together in post. So technically, it's really not a video clip. So what I prefer on doing is actually the second method that I want to show you, which is using the S&Q mode. Now, to create a time-lapse using the S&Q mode, you have to change your dial mode to video. And after you do that, go ahead and go to menu, shooting menu, image quality, S&Q settings, record frame rate, which I usually leave at 24p, and then S&Q frame rate, and I select 1 frames per second. And for the record setting, I use the highest bit rate. Now, when you are using the S&Q mode, make sure that your S&Q exposure is set to manual. Now, I actually did a video on this already, so if you guys are interested, make sure to check out the link up here and down at the description box. Now, since this is a video, make sure you double your shutter speed from your frame rate. Now, in the beginning of this video, I actually said that you're gonna need the ND filter or a variable ND filter. The reason for that is, if you are recording in 1 frames per second, usually you want your shutter speed to double that. Now, doing this is going to give you that natural motion blur, but at the same time, if you're doing this during the daytime or when the sound is really bright, you're going to need the ND filter to compensate with that shutter speed. Now, of course, with your S&Q settings set to manual, make sure to adjust your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO accordingly. So that's basically the 2 methods that you could do with your Sony A7S III to capture some time lapse. Now, if you guys are interested in doing some slow motion footage using the S&Q mode, make sure to check out the video right here. And of course, if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell to get notified the next time I'm back online. Until then, keep being creative, keep getting inspired, and I'm gonna see you guys on to the next one. Peace.